Okay, so let's cut to the point. You've been annoyed by your opponents pushing their pawns forward, and you know it's not supposed to work, but it somehow ends up getting them a better position, and you're just really frustrated. Don't worry, because I'm here today to tell you three main ideas you should keep in mind when dealing with pawn pushers. Now, I'm gonna share with you one of my games that I recently played and walk through these three ideas. But of course, this might vary from game to game. So if you're still not able to really grasp how you could have played in your game, and you're getting kind of annoyed how you should move on forward, just feel free to copy paste your game's PGN in the comment section below, or just send an email to me and I'll take a look at it. If you're fine, I could make a YouTube video on it, or I could just respond to you and tell you how to move forward. So looking at my game, I started out with the London, and here my opponent played knight e4. I just continued developing, and here he played g5, early signs of trying to push his pawns forward aggressively. And here is the first key idea, and I play bishop e5, and once he plays f6, it's basically once your opponent pushes his pawns forwards, they can't go backwards. So that leaves some sort of weakness. And in this case, he's basically aggressively pushing his pawns forward early on, and he's trying to hit my dark squared bishop, but that leaves the light squared diagonal open. And the first thing you should be trying to find is, are there ways where I can basically punish this, where he pushes his pawns forwards, he leaves some sort of weak squares behind. Is there any way I can target them? And in this case, my whole idea with bishop e5 was trying to induce f6 so I can later target this light square diagonal. And in the game, what I should have done is taken a moment and realized the knight on e4 is loose, and also the light square diagonal is loose, and just try to find ways where I can bring my queen in immediately. And knight f d2 is a really good move here because it hits this knight, and it also opens up my queen. Of course, I am sacrificing a bishop here, so I have to be careful, maybe spend a couple of seconds calculating a couple of different lines. But knight f d2 is a move I definitely should consider, however. And in the game, I unfortunately didn't, but just to show you, let's say black, he has to take your knight basically, and then I turn queen h5 check, and after king e7, I take back his knight first, and then once he wins your bishop, I can start to gobble up a bunch of pawns basically here. I take the e5 pawn with tempo, and once the rook moves, I can play queen h5, again using the light square diagonal weakness to keep giving checks to the king, winning back 3 pawns for the piece because I'll grab h7 soon. And the main reason why black is kind of toast here is he's way behind in development. I'm getting bishop d3, queenside castling, and this kingside pawn storm pretty quickly in, and I'm going to be targeting black's king. Now, if you have trouble trying to evaluate positions and determining whether you should go for them or not, I'll be releasing another video soon, so watch out so you can learn how to assess these types of positions. But this position should be much better for white in my opinion. So going back to the main point of this video, you should be trying to target the weak squares left behind by opponents pushing their pawns. Of course, this might not always work out, especially let's say if it's not on the king side but he pushes his pawns somewhere else on the queen side, and that's when the second idea really comes into play. And here I made the mistake of going bishop g3, and the reason why this is a mistake is I allow him to play h5, and he basically grabs the initiative. When your opponents are pushing their pawns, the number one thing they're trying to do is basically create play, not let you have any breathing room, and try to grab the initiative. So if you just simply keep responding to their pawn pushes, allow them to mess up your piece placements, then eventually they will end up with a better position. And here what I did with bishop g3 is just simply respond to the threat of f6. I go back and I was thinking of, okay, I can maybe play knight f d2 next move and bring the queen in, but I don't have time because it's my opponent's move next. He plays h5, and now even if I play a move like knight f d2, it really won't help because my queen never can go to h5 and give the check because the rook is now defending that square. So knight f d2 would actually just be a blunder here. He would probably just trade and play h4, and I'm just losing a piece. So going back with h5 here, I played bishop d3 again, trying to some sort of create some counterplay. And once he played d5, I realized, okay, I allowed him to just get a simply better position from the opening by allowing him to have the initiative, because the threat of h4 is still there, and I had to respond with h3 trying to create room for my bishop, and in the game he took my bishop and I ended up getting a worse pawn structure on the king side, and I allowed him to start targeting them, and I really didn't have a great position after that. So going back, as I said, it's really important you try to find ways where you can grab the initiative. And one thing with pawn pushers is they probably won't spend a lot of time in the opening as well. They push a pawn and maybe you spend a couple of seconds and then make a move, and then they just immediately respond by pushing another pawn, and that can get you kind of frustrated to move quickly as well. And I feel like in most cases it's better actually not to move quickly. Of course, if you're in a blitz game you shouldn't spend too much time, but in general I feel like it's better to just take a moment, look at the weaknesses, try to see if any way you can get through them, or at least find ways to counterattack and keep your initiative, and make sure you don't give black the initiative. Because if you're simply responding to their pawn pushes, then you will end up giving them the initiative, and that's what they want with these pawn pushes. They want to keep going forward, they want to call the game, and they want to call the shots. So you shouldn't allow this. Now the third key idea is basically pawn breaks. In this game I really had no pawn breaks. I did consider the move, like let's say in this position I did consider a move like h4, but again it really doesn't help because my opponent simply trades on g3 and plays a move like g4, and again he fixes my weak pawn structure, which he can later target with bishop d6. So in this game specifically I didn't have any good pawn breaks per se, but in general you should be looking for any pawn breaks that are possible and trying to chip away at their pawn structure, whether it's at the base, or base meaning like the back of their pawn structure. If you can somehow push your pawns, like let's say c4, d5, or maybe at the tip of their pawn structure, maybe with moves like h4, these should be considerations. Of course they don't work here, but I'm just trying to get you the idea of you should also be looking for pawn breaks. Now these are the three key ideas that I want to mention, and I'll try and create more videos in the future on how to deal with different types of pawn pushes and so on. And if you have any games as well, as I mentioned before, feel free to put them in the comment section or just send them to me to my email, and I'll take a look at them and I'll try to help you as well get through this annoying mess of dealing with pawn pushers. And hope to see you next time, and keep watching my channel. Bye.